Astounding Tales of the Public Domain with Father Malone. Stories of our future from the distant past. Enhanced audio performances from the golden age of science fiction. Featuring tales by Paul Anderson, Marion Zimmer Bradley, Robert E. Howard, Ray Bradbury, and more. Tune in to Astounding Tales of the Public Domain with Father Malone at weirdingwaymedia.com. Weirding Way Media.
You're most welcome to this particular museum. There's no admission, no requirement of membership, only a strong and abiding belief in the dark at the top of the stairs, or things that go bump in the night. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Night Gallery.
Welcome, art lovers, to Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast. I'm Father Malone, and joining me here in the gallery, as always, are the One Season Show's Chris Stashu.
Yeah,
you say hi there. And straight from Dreams for Sale, The Twilight Zone 85 is Mr. Mike White.
Hi there.
These are our deep cut shows that Father Malone is referencing. Nobody watches the One Season Show. Nobody listens to it, not even me.
Nevertheless, it's readily available. Now, we are talking about Night Gallery, Rod Serling's follow-up to The Twilight Zone from 1970. And this episode, we're talking about Season 2, Episode 2, which aired on September the 22nd, 1971, and was broken into 4 segments. Death in the Family, The Merciful, Class of 99, and Witch's Feast. Now, since the creative team is pretty much in place for Night Gallery, it's the one that is going to be rotating around. I want to take a moment to highlight a couple of people behind and in front of the scenes here that we're going to be dealing with. In this case, this episode's MVP is a guy named Jeannot Szwarc, who is the director. He basically directed the entire episode except for one little blackout sketch at the end. He directed a bunch last season. He's going to direct a bunch more. If anything works in this episode, it's because of this guy. He came up at sort of the same time as Spielberg, and Spielberg obviously shot past him and took over the world. But when it was time to make Jaws 2, which I think is a really good movie, that movie gets shit on a lot, but I think it's fantastic. I think it's like Aliens to Alien, and Jeannot Szwarc did that. He did the only decent adaptation of a Richard Matheson novel, as far as I'm concerned, which is a movie called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. And then he ended up mainly on television. And I adore him, and we get to see him here, and he's really creative. So I just wanted to.
And he did Red Snow and The Last Offender of Camelot on 1985 Twilight Zone.
Listen,
defend
every piece of his work.
Well, you left it out. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget, since we've already mentioned Twilight Zone 1985.
I'm not pointing out that he made Supergirl either, but you know.
I think you just Barbra Streisand him right there.
Oh boy!
Don't look at my house. Don't do it.
You know what? This is a creative guy, and given this show's deadlines, which we're going to have to talk about a little bit more, I think he did an amazing job here.
And he directed an episode of Columbo.
I'm sure he did.
Lovely but Lethal, which we have not gotten to yet.
Not yet. No, I've reached out to him several times, have yet to hear back from him. So hopefully, fingers crossed, one of these days.
Let him know.
A little American Gothic here, with the accustomed accoutrements to mourning, tombstones and tears, and the somber look of the bereaved. We generally cry at funerals out of a sense of loss. A poor, unfortunate loved one who will no longer walk the earth. He or she will simply occupy 6 feet of it, never to be seen or heard from again. Or at least we make an assumption that that's natural law, and we subscribe to it. But this painting here, and we admit this up front, breaks that law. It's called A Death in the Family. It offers up a new view of death, and it introduces you to quite a family who live here in the Night Gallery.
Anyway, Death in the Family was written by Rod Serling, based on a short story by Miriam Ellen DeFord, and directed by Jeannot Szwarc. This one stars E.G. Marshall and Desi Arnaz.
Desi Arnaz Jr.
We just saw him last month in Marco, the Rankin and Bass musical, featuring Desi Arnaz Jr. as Marco Polo.
I must have missed that one.
I wouldn't say you're missing it, Bob.
This one is the tale of an escaped convict who takes refuge in a lively funeral home. And this also continues our longest running segment here on the show, which is please, Rod Serling, no more, for he's a jolly good fellow. We fucking beg you.
Even my wife picked up on that. She was like, oh, God, not again.
That's right.
They're tearing down Tim Riley's bar.
Oh my God, that's and I've only started counting at Tim Riley's bar, but I guarantee you, if I dug back again, there would have been another episode, and I guarantee you, there's another one on the way. So anyway, I'm keeping count now. Mike, what'd you think of this one?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Was this the one that you told me, Mike, to watch for the ending because you didn't understand what was going on, or was it another one?
This was the one.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was really hoping that E.G. Marshall was going to be like threatened by cockroaches or something. But yeah, I like the first part of it. I like when it's, lonely funeral home guy, and this poor guy has died alone, and then they're burying what feels like a very light coffin. So I'm like, oh, well, he kept the body. Okay, that makes sense. And then we find out that he has preserved him incredibly well, to the point where it almost looks like it's just an actor staying still rather than an actual corpse. I know that sounds weird, but the special effects in this are fantastic.
Not like we see that a lot in this episode. No.
Oh boy, yeah. When they were at the end of the episode and everybody had to not blink, it was great.
And Desi Arnaz Jr. shows up, and he's a wanted criminal on the run. We don't really find out anything about him or what his whole motivation is. He finds that E.G. Marshall has this corpse there, and he doesn't freak out appropriately enough for me. I think I would be much more freaked if I came into a funeral home and the funeral director just had a corpse sitting around with a party hat on and stuff. So yeah, and then it just kind of goes on. It feels very rambly to me, even though it's not that long of a segment.
Very loose in structure. Chris, what'd you think?
I think, I would echo everything that Mike just said. You have Desi Arnaz Jr. not given much to do. E.G. Marshall, who, like Mike mentioned, I know him from all of one thing, which is my problem, not the show's problem. But I know him from Creepshow, which, that segment in Creepshow, I know how much you like that movie, Father Malone. I enjoy it as well. That's my favorite segment in the movie. It's a good segment. It's a great segment. And E.G. Marshall's acting is one of the main reasons it's so good, because he plays that character so well. All of that aside, man, what were they going for here? Like, okay, so he has a bunch of people that he's created a family of. It's like Office Killer, but not good.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's like the same thing. I'm making a family of corpses. To what end?
Yeah. And at first I was like, is that really his father? I was like, no, that's got to be the dude that he was preserving. So, yeah. How does it end? Is Desi Arnaz Jr. part of the family?
Now he is.
Yes.
Okay. They both die in that ensuing gunfight.
Because he goes bang, and then he's like, "Oh wait, I gotta shoot myself too."
I think the gun was fired while there was a wrestling match going on.
Right.
That shot Desi Arnaz, and then Desi Arnaz shot our man E.G. Marshall, and then E.G. Marshall was still alive enough to drag Arnaz to his spot before taking his own and then collapsing.
Oh,
there it is in a nutshell.
Long enough to talk to the cops and let the cops know what's going on, and to have a moment where he's my son.
I like that moment. I don't like that he died. Actually, when I was not convinced that he was shot and sort of jabbering away and looking crazy, I thought, oh, this is good. I appreciate an ending where someone has completely lost their mind. But no, they had to throw it away and punish him because Rod Serling wrote this script.
But you don't understand. The ultimate punishment is death. You don't get that?
No, the ultimate punishment is everyone respecting Rod enough to not touch his scripts that he got through, which is what I assume happened here with Mr. Szwarc. Obviously didn't change a line and followed the directions. The only sort of subversion to Serling's regular nonsense here is the music, which is bonkers crazy cool and completely counterpoint to everything we're seeing on screen. It's like xylophones and flutes, and it's really jaunty. It kind of it points to what this story actually wanted to be, which was a daylight horror story. Like Serling can't help wrapping it in a fucking crumbling old mansion, and there's a goddamn thunderstorm going on at night. Oh, by the way, I want to mention a couple of like someone behind the scenes and someone in front of the scenes. The someone in front of the scenes is in this segment. They've been in a bunch of segments we've already seen. Going to be in a bunch of segments. It's one of the most famous things of all time. It's this. That's called Castle Thunder. That was first hit the scene in 1931. That sound effect was created for Frankenstein and has appeared in virtually every horror and science fiction story ever since. A lot in Scooby-Doo and Gilligan's Island and everything.
Bride of Frankenstein. I just heard it in that.
This thing pops up forever. So shout out Castle Thunder. You don't get enough respect, and we all grew up listening to you. And
I was waiting for Roddy McDowall to come into this episode, given that where it's set. Like, there's this one set on the Universal backlot that they shoot all these gothic horror episodes in. Like, that's what this feels like. So goddamn set bound. Again.
So what's up with the stairwell? I mean, this stairwell shows up in the next segment, but then this stairwell is dressed with all of these empty frames. I mean, you're right. I mean, I'm waiting for Portafoy to be like, oh, let me switch these out with another photo or something, but they're empty. And I'm just like, what are we going for here with this set decoration?
Do you remember, Father Malone, that episode of Tales from the Crypt where it was like the writer in the apartment building, and then he was like, I want this woman to fall in love with me. And so she does. And I remember you straight up saying when we did that episode, like, man, this show is so fucking set bound. So is this show now. Like, this show needs to just like find shoot it from another angle doesn't work anymore, because it's like we're seeing literally the same set in two segments. Like, what?
Right. And now that's us watching the show and noticing these things and you know, whatever. I'm being a Jeannot apologist right now, because I think the shot, it's actually beautifully shot. The guy knows where to put a camera. He knows how to light it. It felt as close to a film as you could get on a set, and still match it with sort of the outside stuff. Speaking of the outside stuff, the funeral scene. Okay, there's an opening sequence. I'm going to skip talking about, like, when we cut to E.G. Marshall at the burial of this corpse, these faked putting into the ground. That's where this episode should have begun and carried us from there. And then this should have been between Desi Arnaz and him, like, talking about their situation and these corpses around, because it turns into this, like, first of all, it's another debate of Serling's at the beginning, in the form of E.G. Marshall's character seems at least close to retirement. We can agree on that, right? Not his first funeral. When would he ask anybody the questions he's asking them? What about the flowers? Who will come and mourn? Someone must pick music. Who will care? Like, that's day one at the job at the funeral parlor, right? And then 30, 40 years later, you're just like, give me the corpse. Thank you. Goodbye. This crisis that he's having is just doesn't make any sense, sort of character-wise.
No, he would be so jaded by this point.
Right. Like, very desensitized. He would be like, speaking of Tales from the Crypt, he'd be like the punishment fits the crime. You remember that episode, Father Malone, where it's the funeral home and it's the guy who's like swapping out legs and doing all kinds of terrible shit with the sneakers walking down the stairs.
Oh my God.
That's the way the character should be. Like, super disillusioned with all this. But then you can't tell an empathetic story about a crazy person who has corpses in his basement. Like, what?
I could have gone with an empathetic E.G. Marshall who also has bodies around because he's a lonely old man and, like, you know, thought they didn't get a fair shake in life and he's going to give him another one. That's not the story we got here. What we got was, okay, I just want to say, when Desi Arnaz first comes through the window and he's sopping wet and he looks like the 1970s, like, always jarring on this show now. Like, you know, as much as Szwarc is sort of pushing against Serling's need to keep everything 1955, which the episode, I mean, until Arnaz pops through, if you told me it was 55, I'd believe you, because nothing else tells us that we're in the modern age. The speech Arnaz gives on the couch, it's like the perfect distillation of everything. I know I keep kicking Rod Serling, guys, but he keeps doing it, so I'm going to keep hitting back. It's the perfect distillation of Serling's sort of dialogue, which is the character recounts everything we've just seen and then tells us what it means. Right. It's like it's asking the audience to be wistful about something we just saw 30 seconds ago. So it's like, imagine a guy like me, a convict on the run for murder. And I end up here at a funeral home and it's run by this cuckoo old man who loves life more than anything. Like, I got to throw in a little hip lingo for the kids because Rod's connected still. But all that. And by the way, speaking of Arnaz, and at the risk of offending the guy who has Automan's number, Desi Arnaz Jr. is like the perfect distillation of what you expect the child of actors to be like when they're actually performing. There are exceptions, right? But, for every Michael Douglas, there are like 20 Eric Douglases, right? They're like, and they're so earnest, and you don't want to fault them, but like acting is like mimicry of life. And the way kids act, it's like mimicry of acting. Does that make sense? I don't know. I mean it, mister. Get out of the way. I mean it.
We weren't singing the praises of Desi Arnaz Jr. on the Marco podcast, on the Rankin on Bass show that Mike and I host with our dear friend Richard Haddam. We were not singing his praises. He was the worst part of that movie.
He's real bad here, too.
Yeah, had he flown on a kite, that might have been something else.
For the whole time, Mike, just in the air
awesome.
The whole time.
Yeah,
hello,
you kooky old
there.
Man, you crazy old. Ooh, I'm gonna get you. I hear everything that you're saying, Father Malone, but I have to say, Class of '99 is worse.
Oh, it's worse, isn't it? Yes,
I think it is.
All right.
I mean, but that's like Chris always talks about the world's tallest dwarf. It's like, well, yeah, 6 of the one, half.
Yeah, all right, no, I get it. Yeah. I just I think there was something maybe this was ultimately just a Tales from the Crypt like blackout, this is what Rod thinks is really shocking, and I'm sure that there was some problem with standards. You want to show like a house full of corpses all sitting up happily, like they couldn't go too far with it, but they didn't go at all far. Like you said, it's clearly just a bunch of actors holding still, so there's no real scare there either. Anyway, did anyone notice the last shot was reversed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It was really unusual and off-putting, but in a good way. Like I rewound it back and was like, what was that? I would like to look if the candles were flickering backwards, but I was like,
right.
The first time the cops backed out of the room, I went, wow, I guess they were really shocked by. They saw. Wait a minute.
I was happy to see James B. Sicking in this. I always enjoy him, even though he was so young in this. It's wild. Can you imagine? I mean, this was when did this one come out again?
This was in 1971, September.
Wow. Just 3 years later, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre would just copy this so much.
Yeah. Tobe Hooper is on record as saying, Night Gallery.
I was very inspired by the Death in the Family episode from Night Gallery. I knew it sounded like Tobe Hooper was here, but no, he's still dead. That was just me doing a spot-on Tobe Hooper impersonation.
That was pretty good, man. You really invoked him. It was an evocation of him.
Yes.
All right. Our next segment is it's The Merciful.
It's a minute and a half long.
I know. It's written by Jack Laird based on a short story by Charles L. Sweeney Jr. and directed again by Jeannot Szwarc. This one stars Imogen Coca and King Donovan. It's basically just a twist on Poe's Cask of Amontillado with a husband and wife, or a wife, bricking her husband in. Maybe. I mean,
and they telegraphed this so early on. I was just like, oh, he's not in the room. She is. She's bricking herself in.
Yeah.
And then it just goes on forever. I'm like, oh God.
On and on.
Yeah.
Phantom of what opera this is not.
Yeah. As she puts the final brick in and it just becomes completely soundproof, I was like, is that really how bricks work?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, doesn't the whole idea of the Cask of Amontillado completely hinge on the idea that in the story, he's tied up to the wall too?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much carpentry and bricklaying y'all have done, but you can knock a wall over pretty easily, especially if, now just putting this out here, it's not dry yet.
How unusual.
But she's pretty willing.
But in this story.
That's
my
the
point is,
version you get it,
right?
Yeah,
right.
And it's not him, it's her. Get it? Yeah.
So dumb.
Yeah.
It was so dumb.
It was fine. I actually felt a little weird watching it, like imagining myself in the situation. But this is nothing that they did on screen. I just started remembering
bricking yourself into a
and
tomb.
how good it is. The last line of that story is like one of my favorite interactions of all time, because Montresor is the one being walled up, and he says, "For the love of God," and he says back very calmly, "Yes, for the love of God." And then he puts the last brick in. It's such a good line. And anytime they film it, they always shout the line, and I'm always like, no, just say it. Anyway, that was the Merciful. Imogene Coca and King Donovan, husband and wife, by the way.
Imogene Coca, very, very familiar to me, but not through regular channels. I think for me, it's her role as Shad or Shag, and It's About Time was my entree into Imogene Coca.
Wow. I grew up knowing her only from National Lampoon's Vacation, and then later got to see a bunch of Sid Caesar's Show of Shows.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. But It's About Time, probably one of the best TV theme songs. I mean, it puts the other Sherwood Shorts series to shame.
Really? I know nothing of this show.
It's About Time. It's about space. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Sweet.
I was just disappointed they didn't say Requias in Pace at the end. I was waiting for it. Come on, give the goddamn source material a little bit more credit, because it's good. This isn't.
Yeah, what I think is funny is that this is based on a short story by somebody else. Like,
right.
Okay, like, yeah, right. Yeah, it was just.
I read
Edgar Allan Poe, guys.
Yeah. What if it's a husband and wife and she's doing it voluntarily? There, I rewrote the story. Now on to Mike's favorite segment of this episode. This is Class of '99.
A most unusual graduation exercise now. It's titled The Class of '99. A set of numbers and a pair of eyes. We'll move behind them now to give you an idea why we call the place you're in the Night Gallery.
This is an original script by Rod Serling. Can you imagine?
I can.
And was directed by Jeannot Szwarc, starring Vincent Price, Brandon Wild, Hilly Hicks, and Randolph Mantooth. This concerns a graduating class's final examination and plumbs the depths of what it means to be human.
Oh boy.
Mike, go.
It's plumbing something. It's plumbing it all right.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea what they were going for through most of this skit. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Just this Vincent Price as this proctor for the final examination and asking all of these very bizarre questions. And I mean, it was pure Serling when it became all about race for a few minutes. I mean, it really was about race for, I'd say, 2/3 of it. Once they start talking about this black gentleman that's in class, and they start slapping each other, and I'm just like, what am I watching? What in the world is happening here? I was very happy. My wife was all about Mr. Mantooth. She's just like, oh, is that Raymond Mantooth? I'm like, who the hell's Raymond Mantooth? Just like, he was in Emergency. And I was like, wow, okay, I can really tell our age difference right now, honey.
Mike, please tell me you caught one for that. Bam! Honey, it's because you're older than me.
Yeah.
God.
That's what you get from marrying a cougar.
An actual cougar? You're married to an actual...
Yeah. How do you think I got these scars? Sorry, Randolph Mantooth, not Raymond Mantooth. My bad.
All the Randolph Mantooth fans.
Yeah. His name is Mantooth. That's all.
I felt like I could hear Rod Serling clucking his tongue at me while I was watching the episode. I'm glad he didn't use any pejoratives. I mean, that was my concern, was he was going to say something offensive or have one of the characters say something offensive, because it like verges on it, right?
He wanted to.
Right? I want to say the N-word. I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
he did. the what you're saying, Mike, like it seems like heavily freighted towards the racism side. Because when all is said and done, what we're dealing with here is a bunch of robots who are going to be sent out into Earth that has been devastated by some sort of apocalypse. This is the year 1999, and they're going to repopulate the Earth just the way humans would. So they're being taught to hate irrationally. And so when we get the first hate thing, it like the first example of it's like it's a sort of black and white thing. Like, give me a ridiculous reason to hate this guy. Like, well, he's black and I don't like him for these reasons. Then the second one, it becomes about monetary or just sort of a little more aloof. And then the last one is supposed to be this makes no sense at all, like reason to hate somebody. And it just folds back to racism because he picks an Asian kid, he picks Chang, and like he says, well, there's no reason to hate him, but I hate him sort of specifically. So what we're getting is a parable about race, and we're being told by Rod that racism is and hatred is taught. Like, what? Oh my, Rod, we get it. Rod, we get it.
That's why I feel like the meetings are just like, Rod, you can't do what you used to do, man. Like, it doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked since the last time the show worked. And the show worked, but it didn't work all the time either. And it's shocking to watch Rod Serling fall and continue to fall. It's not Rod Serling's Midnight Gallery anymore, or Night Gallery, but he's still involved heavily. And I wish he wasn't. Like, I wish he wasn't. That's where I'm coming at when I watch a segment like this. It's like, what the fuck is the point?
This script got through. Two of his scripts got through here. He complained that like a lot of his scripts were being rejected or rewritten here. By the way, that's also a fallacy. I've come to find out in further reading. And two of his scripts were rewritten, like sort of ground up, right? Like, and everything else, it's minor changes. It's always sort of like dialogue or an actor improvised on the set, and they allowed it to sort of go through. So basically, what he's dealing with here is his script either gets through and gets made or gets rejected. This is getting through. What's getting rejected?
Right. I have a question. Were the professors, were they robots?
I think Vincent Price. Yeah, no, they have to be, right? Because the whole idea. No. Vincent Price is a human, and then they turn off the rest of the class. So I think they were human because they mention in the really clumsy giant exposition dump of a finale at the fucking graduation ceremony. God, man. Like, if he had just, you know what, if they had left this ending ambiguous and not had the finale thing, we're left going like, what the fuck was that? It might have been something. But anyway, no, he has to hit the nail on the head. So he says that these androids or machines have been remade in humans' image to repopulate the earth for them by them. Like, so I think there are still humans teaching them how to be properly human, like in this, vicious and horrifying manner. So I think Vincent Price at least was human there.
I was so glad they had Vincent Price in an episode of this show, and he did nothing. And this is the only episode segment he's in the entire show.
Yeah, it's good to waste him. It's really good to waste him.
Vincent fucking Price.
Yeah.
Not Randolph Mantooth. No. Vincent Price. Like, why cast Vincent Price? Like, why anybody could have played that role. It doesn't lean on his strengths as an actor. It actually is completely devoid of the charisma that he normally has.
I am shocked that just as the first segment was ripped off, here we have a reverse of this with Mark L. Lester's Class of 1999, which came out in 1990, where it's the teachers who are robots and the students are all people.
Oh my God.
Come on. Where's the outrage about this, people? Come on.
Reparations are necessary.
Intellectual property has been stolen.
Oh boy, Rod. Oh, I will say, if there is anything impressive about this episode, I thought all the performances really good. I think it's shot really well. It also should be noted that this entire episode, beginning to end, rehearsal to final take, was half a day of filming. That's how much the time they gave.
Shocking.
So that means they spent like a couple hours maybe rehearsing, and then another 2.5 to 3 filming. And this is what we got. In that regard, this is fucking incredible.
Oh yeah.
If you were to turn the sound off and not have to listen to anything they were saying, and you would be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway, anything else on this one, gents?
Oh, I did really quickly want to go back for a second. I apologize about this severely. Chris, our good friend Noam Pitlick is in the Death in the Family episode. The man who has given us so many hours of entertainment as the director of Barney Miller episodes and also the director of Taxi episodes there, Father Malone. So he is the driver in the Death in the Family segment.
At the one at the beginning, the one dropping off the corpse.
Yeah.
Oh wow, the one who I went, oh my god, is that Frank Stallone? And then he started acting really well, and I went, oh no, it's not Frank Stallone.
Started snapping his fingers, take it back.
Frank Stallone would have been what, 16?
I know.
Even an acting powerhouse then.
Yeah, of course.
Thank God he wasn't. Oh my god. All right, our last segment is called Witch's Feast. This is a Blackout sketch, but a little bit longer than a regular Blackout sketch. This is written by Night Gallery's resident gag man, Gene Kearney, and directed by Gerald Freeman. We're going to talk a little bit more about him in the next episode. Now, if you have the DVD of Night Gallery, you've seen it in syndication, this is the part where you're going to tell us that we're insane because there's supposed to be a scene with King Tut here. That was Satisfaction Guaranteed, starring Victor Buono. And when this episode was rebroadcast on syndication, and then of course on the DVD, it was replaced with the Buono one. But this was the actual one that aired, Witch's Feast. It stars Agnes Moorehead, Ruth Buzzy, Fran Ryan, who is under all that makeup. Turns out she's the woman at the beginning of Stripes who takes the cab ride with Bill Murray. There, Ringer.
Oh,
my name is Ringer.
Oh, I shouldn't have had all that cough medicine.
And Allison McKay. This is just about impassioned witches' covens. Yeah, I guess they need a coffee break too, or sandwich break or something.
Yeah,
it's so controversial. We can't show it again.
I have to investigate why the switch, but like I don't,
because the thing that they switched it with is actually fucking weird. Because I watched it. I watched Satisfaction Guaranteed, and I just so I could know what they replaced this with. Because it, to know what Witch's Feast is one thing, but to understand what they replaced it with, I think is just as important. Satisfaction Guaranteed is strange and creepy and off-putting and fucking weird, and the twist at the end is bizarre. In this, it's just like that Leslie Nielsen Phantom of the Opera thing. It's just fucking dumb. It's just dumb. It exists to be 5 minutes of chuckle fucks, and then that's it. Like there's no substance to it. So why? Who was offended? It's like the episode of the X-Files Home where they're gang banging one another underneath a bed and having incest babies. Like, who was offended? Like, I'm having a hard time finding what the controversial or offensive nature of Witch's Feast was, because Satisfaction Guaranteed is actually upsetting and weird and strange.
But it is better across the board.
Witch's Feast or Satisfaction Guaranteed?
Satisfaction Guaranteed.
I think they're both terrible.
I like Satisfaction Guaranteed.
Well, no, man. I could just watch Buono do anything. So
I like Victor Buono. I just like the twist in that is.
I like that joke better. I like that he's like reviewing these ladies just because he's deciding which one to eat. Spoilers for Satisfaction Guaranteed.
Is it a spoiler that it's just like, I'm going to eat her? Like, okay.
No, but that works. It works better than this joke, this is like,
I just thought Victor Buono liked thick ladies. What's wrong with that?
It works on both levels.
Mm-hmm.
We never see how he eats her. Oh, man, that doing.
He pulls a knife and a fork out. We see how he eats her.
Well, that's just because that was in his pocket, and he didn't want that to interfere with.
Oh, when he got eating her. He's not going to eat her ass the way we're talking about. He's going to eat her ass literally.
God, you're so graphic, sir.
No, I'm not. What is Witch's Feast other than just like a bunch of witches talking about the food that they're going to eat? Like
Yeah, Mad Magazine had like a segment every month called like the lighter side of hippies or the lighter side of whatever. Like these segments are like the lighter side of horror. It's just like they're just like us, like they're waiting for their sandwich delivery. Like, okay, we get it. And like again, maybe in 1970, where horror wasn't coming to you every week in every possible direction through every media, like this little brief thing was really funny, or so I doubt it was funny then, but. It at least was probably a little more impactful than here. It's just kind of there. It doesn't hurt. It's nice to see Agnes' forehead.
The streets were full of people with their signs saying "No more witches' feast."
No, but I don't know why it got switched. Like, were there protests? Like, I'll find out.
Somebody was upset.
Well, like I think it might have been they were upset with the quality of it. They're going, "You're putting this back out, and we have this. Just put this." I mean, it might have been just a creative decision, and like, the people who've been complaining are the people like us who are like, "Put that back in chronological order," you know, like. No, the other thing is better.
I mean, where did Satisfaction Guaranteed come from? Because it feels like it's just kind of an oddball thing, because I don't think it's part of an episode.
Technically the last episode of this season.
Yeah, okay. That's what I think happened. I think they probably filmed it and had either too much space or not enough space in another episode and went, well, right, we've got this left over now, kind of, and like, we'll just put it on that. That wasn't very good. Yeah, well, it's because
it's good way to treat something. It's got this leftover piece of shit. Who cares?
Well, because it's weird, because on Wikipedia, which I know is never wrong, I mean, it's listed as segment 22C, along with the Caterpillar and Little Girl Lost, which I'm not looking forward to seeing another version of Little Girl Lost. But the air date is 3 weeks after the other two. So like the Caterpillar and Little Girl Lost are listed as airing March 1st, 1972, and Satisfaction Guaranteed March 22nd, 1972. So it's like, what?
That might have been the first rerun of this episode.
Oh.
Because that's always how it's listed. Like when they reran this show in the spring, they replaced it with this, and then since then they've just left it on there. So it might have. I don't know what the initial impulse in switching it was, but clearly either through oversight or purpose, this is right. Satisfaction Guaranteed is usually the end.
That would make sense.
And what's equally as weird is they had a segment called Die Now, Pay Later that they didn't put into the first season of the show.
Right.
And they didn't put into the second season of the show either.
Right.
Even though they needed something in addition to what they had already.
Have you seen Die Now, Pay Later?
Mm-mm.
No, I haven't.
I have. I'm glad they didn't put it anywhere.
I mean, again,
it's like this. It's the sort of same, like, one joke, but that one is painful because it has Slim Pickens in it as kind of a straight man forwarding the one joke for too many minutes.
Oh boy.
So yeah, at least they showed some restraint here. Jack Laird.
and by the way, Chris, Vincent Price will return in the first episode of the third season.
Oh, really? Oh, well, good. Yeah. Never mind then. With Bill Bixby, of all people.
Returning with sorcerers and such. Right?
And Jeannot Szwarc.
There you go, baby. I'm gonna keep singing Jeannot's praises, but not on this program. I'm not finding any favor. Anyway, gonna go ahead and play a commercial for our next episode.
This item here is called Since Aneda Came to Stay. And Aneda is the most memorable character. You may not like her, but I seriously doubt if you'll ever forget her. Be thankful you've met her only in the Night Gallery. We refer to him by different names: Lucifer, Mephistopheles, Beelzebub. But by any other name, he'd smell of brimstone. These the ingredients to a one-man stew, a disc jockey, a radio show, and a painting we call The Flip Side of Satan.
That's right. On the next episode of Midnight Viewing, we'll be taking a look at Night Gallery Season 2, Episode 3. That's broken into 3 segments, Since and Ida Came to Stay, with apologies to Mr. Hyde, and The Flip Side of Satan. Until then, where can people find you, Chris Stashu?
WeirdingWayMedia.com. That's the podcast network that we created, 19 shows and counting. That's not the name of a show. That's how many shows that there are.
I'm on 19 shows and counting.com.
But there's plenty of shows over there for you to listen to. And if you can't find something to listen to, there's a chance that we're adding it anyways. So WeirdingWayMedia.com. That's where you can find all the things that I work on, like literally everything, and most things that y'all work on too.
Don't even bother asking me, because it's going to be the same answer.
Yeah, me too, everybody. You know what? I guess we can all say it. Go for the Weirding Way, everybody. But also go to FatherMalone.com, because that's where Wolf and Raisin can be found. Okay.
Oh,
side plug.
Fucking God.
Gab. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will catch you here in the gallery next time.